On a warm night in Madrid, more than 80,000 fans filled the Santiago Bernabeu. The lights were blinding, the stadium was packed, the atmosphere was electric, and somewhere behind the spectacle, money was flowing in from every direction. Tickets, sponsorships, broadcasting deals, merchandise, tourism. Everything about the scene looked expensive. Everything about it looked profitable. And yet, football has a strange secret. In the most recent season, Real Madrid generated over €1 billion in revenue. 1 billion from a football club. They sold out their renovated stadium. They signed global sponsorship deals. They sold merchandise to fans on 6 continents. By almost any measure, they look like one of the most commercially successful sports organisations in history. That same season, Chelsea Football Club reported a pre-tax loss of £355 million, the highest recorded loss in Premier League history. Now place those two facts side by side. The world's most famous football league generated billions in revenue and still lost hundreds of millions collectively. More revenue than ever before, more losses than ever before. This is not a coincidence. It is not a few bad decisions by a few reckless owners. It is the predictable outcome of a financial system built, deliberately or not, to make profitability incredibly difficult. And once you see how it works, you cannot unsee it. To understand why football clubs lose money, you first have to understand why it looks like they shouldn't. From the outside, football appears to be one of the most lucrative businesses on earth. The Premier League's television rights are worth billions. Major clubs have fan bases larger than the populations of entire countries. Transfer fees routinely exceed €100 million. Sponsorship deals are measured in tens and sometimes hundreds of millions. The European football market generates tens of billions of euros every year. The biggest clubs generate revenues that many multinational companies would envy. By every visible metric, football looks like a money printing machine. But revenue and profit are not the same thing. And in football, the gap between them is the entire story. For years, club revenues have continued to rise, yet profitability has become harder and harder to achieve. Many clubs now rely on owner funding just to bridge the gap between what they earn and what they spend. The question is obvious. If all this money is flowing into football, where is it going? There is one number that explains most of the industry's financial problems: player wages. In the most recent seasons, many clubs have spent an extraordinary percentage of their income on salaries. Some have even spent more on wages than they generated in total revenue, before maintenance, before administration, before debt repayments, before anything else. Their wage bill alone consumed everything. At first glance, this sounds irresponsible, but football operates under a very different set of incentives than a normal business. A company can choose to cut costs and protect profits. A football club cannot do that so easily. Because football is a competition. There are only so many trophies, only so many Champions League places, only so many opportunities to succeed, and the most reliable way to improve your chances is simple: buy better players. To attract better players, you must pay more than your competitors, and once one club raises the standard, everyone else is forced to react. The result is a wage race with no natural finish line. Wages do not simply follow revenue, they often grow ahead of it, and once those contracts are signed, clubs are locked into obligations that can last for years. The money comes in, the wages consume it, then they demand more, and salaries are only part of the problem. Transfers create another. In 1992, a world record transfer cost around £10 million. Today, transfer fees approaching £200 million are no longer unimaginable. The market has exploded. But what makes football fascinating is not the size of the fees, it's what happens afterward. When Neymar left Barcelona in 2017 for a record-breaking fee, Barcelona suddenly found themselves with enormous resources. In theory, they were richer. In reality, they entered a spending spiral. They signed replacement after replacement. Each deal brought another transfer fee, another salary package, another long-term commitment, and before long, the financial burden became enormous. This is because transfer spending rarely exists in isolation. Every signing creates future costs. Transfer fees, wages, bonuses, agent commissions, and all of those commitments accumulate over time. The industry often treats spending as investment, but many transfers become liabilities long before they become successes. The result is an arms race. Every club is running faster, every club is spending more, and nobody can afford to stop, because stopping means falling behind. In most industries, success creates profit. In football, success often creates expenses, and that leads to a much bigger question. If football's economics are this difficult, why do wealthy people keep buying clubs? At first, it makes no sense. Why would billionaires invest in businesses that regularly lose money? The answer is that many owners are not investing for annual profits. They are investing in something else: influence, prestige, visibility, access. Football clubs occupy a unique place in society. They are businesses, but they are also cultural institutions. A successful football club commands attention from millions of people. It creates emotional loyalty that most brands can only dream of, and ownership of that institution carries value beyond financial returns. Some owners see clubs as long-term assets, others see them as symbols of status, and for certain state-backed investors, clubs can become instruments of global influence and national branding. This changes the entire equation, because the operating business may lose money, but the value of the asset itself often rises dramatically. A club purchased for hundreds of millions can later be worth several billions. The business loses money, the asset gains value, and many owners are betting on the asset. Nowhere is this dynamic more visible than Barcelona. For years, Barcelona stood among the most commercially successful clubs in the world. Their revenues were enormous, their global brand was unmatched. Their players included some of the greatest footballers in history. From the outside, everything appeared strong, but beneath the surface, costs were growing even faster than revenue. The wage bill became unsustainable, debt accumulated, financial flexibility disappeared, then the pandemic arrived. Matchday revenue vanished almost overnight, and suddenly the system broke. Barcelona found themselves carrying enormous financial obligations they could no longer comfortably support. Emergency financing became necessary, cost-cutting became unavoidable, and in one of the most shocking moments in modern football, Lionel Messi left the club he had spent his entire professional career representing, not because he wanted to leave, but because the economics no longer worked. No club illustrated the problem more clearly. One of the most successful football organisations on earth had generated huge revenues for years, and it still found itself in financial distress, because revenue was never the real constraint. Costs were. And costs in football have no natural ceiling. This is the hidden architecture of the entire industry. Clubs compete for a limited number of prizes. The strongest tool available is spending. Spending attracts talent. Talent increases the chance of winning. Winning creates pressure to spend even more. The cycle repeats, again and again. For a small number of clubs, financial sustainability is possible. Real Madrid has diversified its revenue streams through its stadium and commercial operations. Other clubs have built strong financial foundations through disciplined management and consistent success. But these examples are exceptions, not the rule. For most clubs, the pattern remains remarkably consistent. More revenue, more spending, more losses, more owner support. The machine grows, and the deficit often grows with it. Football was never designed to maximize profit. It was designed to determine who wins, and that distinction changes everything. In a normal industry, companies compete to generate the highest returns. In football, clubs compete to lift trophies. Profit is often secondary. Sometimes it is irrelevant. What matters is victory. That is why clubs continue spending. That is why owners continue investing. And that is why losses continue appearing year after year. So when you see a football club report another enormous financial loss, the correct question is not, how did they fail? The correct question is, what were they trying to achieve? Because in football, losses are often not evidence of failure. They are evidence of ambition. The trophy and the loss are frequently the same decision. One is simply the consequence of the other. Football clubs do not lose money because they are bad at business. They lose money because making money was never really the objective. The objective was always winning. And winning, it turns out, is one of the most expensive business strategies ever created.